Hi everybody, so today's video we're going to talk about permatrims. What are they and how do you fit them to your outboard? Now a permatrim, I'll just take one out of the box here, is a foil or a wing or a hydrofoil. They have a lot of different names, but essentially what they are is they're a plate that gets fitted to the cavitation plate of your outboard. So what does a permatrim do? So when you fit a permatrim on your cavitation plate, what it does is it directs the thrust of the propeller horizontally. Now this keeps the bow down, it actually lifts the transom a little bit, and it gives some really directional thrust from the propeller. With these little turn down winglets, it also helps your steering and gives you much more responsive steering. So there's a lot of benefits of using one of these. There's a lot of different brands out there, but Permatrim is a New Zealand made product that we really like. So what does a Permatrim come with? So I've just taken this one out of the box here, and it comes with instructions of how to fit it, and in here there's a little box, and inside the box is some hardware, nuts, bolts, washers that you can use to attach it to your cavitation plate. Now today I'm going to show you 3 different ways of fitting your Permatrim to your outboard. Now using nuts and bolts, you can see over here we've already done this one here. Because it's only a 6 horsepower and quite a small outboard, I've just used the 4 of the 6 bolts available. Now when you're doing it this way, you simply put the Permatrim in place, clamp it up, drill holes right through the cavitation plate and the Permatrim, put the head of the bolt underneath so it's got least disturbance, and the nut and the washer on top. Do them up tight and that's done. Preferably you'd add a little bit of a Sikaflex or some other sealant between the two, just so you don't get any of the fizzing or corrosion between the stainless hardware and the aluminium. Now there's a further 2 methods which you can use, and we have used to fit Permatrims. One is using the 3M VHB tape, and as you can see this is a 1.1 mil tape. This stuff's very strong. It's certainly strong enough to do it. What I'd recommend if you are going to use the tape though is to make sure you clean both surfaces, both the cavitation plate and the Permatrim, very well with a good solvent, and clamp it up for 24 hours to make sure it's strong. So that's one method. Now our preferred method out of all of them is to use Sikaflex Marine 291. It's a polyurethane sealant, very strong, and that's a method that we're going to show you today. Now why do we like this? The reason we like this is that once we've fitted the Permatrim, one, we don't have to do any drilling, so we're not drilling holes in our outboard, and then if you ever want to sell it, some people may not like the fact that you've got a Permatrim on or that you've got holes in your outboard, so you can clean it up and almost get it back to new. But the other reason is that once that's sealed on, there's no bolt heads, nuts, washers, anything, so you have a lot less disturbance around the outboard, the bit that's in the water, so effectively less drag. What things do we need to fit the Permatrim using the Sikaflex method? So you need a pencil for marking, a tape for masking, a rag and some solvents for the cleaning. I use 2 or 3 good quick grip clamps to hold the plate on the outboard, and then a couple of weights also just to weigh it down and make sure you get a real good tight bond between the 2 surfaces. So you can see here I've just used a white pencil to mark firstly the place where the Permatrim fits on the cavitation plate, and then underneath the Permatrim I've also marked that. This means I can mask it up, and then the excess sealant doesn't go all over the plate or the outboard, so it's much easier to clean up. Okay, the next step is to clean and prime the surfaces. We're going to use a solvent called toluene. You could also use MEK or acetone, but just wipe it lightly, don't get too aggressive with the wiping. Now the purpose of this is to make sure that the surfaces are perfectly clean so that the Sikaflex will adhere properly. Absolutely essential that you wipe the surfaces down. Now you'll probably find that after you've wiped it, the surfaces are slightly duller. Now that's a good thing, it means everything's going to stick well. Okay, so you can see I've added quite a thick, reasonably even layer. I've smoothed it out with a little tool to try and get a thick, even layer over the whole surface. And then we're going to clamp it up and then we'll clean it up. So this step is applying the clamping forces. So you can see here I've got a clamp either side, and then I'm applying a little bit of weight to the back, just because it's very hard to get a clamp on the back of the, there's nothing to clamp onto, or you need a very long throated clamp to get on there. So I just use a couple of weights to really push it down. You want it really even pressure right throughout. Put as much pressure on it as you can on the clamps, and then make sure you stand back, have a look, line it up, make sure everything's dead straight, and then let it set for a while. So peel the tape off after about 20 minutes once the Sikaflex has got a bit of a skin on it, and then do the final cleanup with methylated spirits. It's quite a soft solvent, so it won't harm the paintwork, but it'll clean up the Sikaflex. Now we just leave that for 24 to 48 hours until it's got a full cure, ideally 48 hours, and then it'll be ready to use. So there you have it. That's been 48 hours now for a full cure of the Sikaflex, and that's ready to go. So that's super strong. That's never gonna come off. So there you have it. We've got 3 ways of fitting a Permatrim to your outboard, using the bolts, using the VHB tape and using the Sikaflex 291. As you can see, that using the Sikaflex gives you a real clean finish, and that's our preferred method.